Hello darts fans, that's Timo Newman here, the transporter. Welcome to the Good Ship Undarted Waters, and we're continuing in our mini-series on tops for power scoring. Just got a good old Jose de Souza there, getting into the groove, and today's video is all about how do you get into the groove for tops, or if you need tops for a checkout, how do you adjust from your normal throw to tops. It's an amazing thing, even at the elite level, how often do we see players significantly undershoot for tops or go an inch over. Without wanting to be disrespectful, I feel like even at the elite level, a lot of players kind of shoot for tops optimistically. They're not really aiming because they're not in a groove. So the whole purpose of today's video is to try to discuss an idea that I had the other day, because I'm a physicist, that's my background. The whole point of this channel is really to try and bring a bit of science and maths and shine that on darts to see if we get any new ideas. I had an idea about how we can really help ourselves with tops using all of our experience with the target we spend most of our time practicing on, which is the treble 20. How can we use all of that muscle memory and unconscious resonance with the treble 20 to help with tops? And I know how we can do that, and I know that because there's an idea in quantum mechanics called the adiabatic theorem. So I'm going to tell you very briefly what the adiabatic theorem is in quantum mechanics, and then you'll get the idea, and then we'll exploit that. We'll use that quantum physics idea in our practice, how we can exploit treble 20 for tops, and I'll try and do a demonstration at the end. So let me get the whiteboard. I'll turn the board light off there. So, no equations, just pictures, because the idea is all about a picture, okay? And I'm going to try and make this brief, because most of you are not tuning in to learn about the adiabatic theorem, I understand that. But here's the idea. See, in the quantum revolution, for the first time, we understood that nature very often has what we call discrete states. And you might have heard people talk about eigenstates or wave function states when they talk about quantum mechanics. That's how the universe really is. So in an atom, an electron in an atom can't have any old energy. The electrons in an atom can have a low energy or an energy up here, but they can't have any energies in between these particular states, okay? So that's energy right up there, okay? So that might be the state of an atom, or the states of an atom, and the electron, if it's in its ground state, which is where it wants to be most comfortable, would be sitting in that lower state. Now here's the next thing we need to know about quantum mechanics. You might have heard of something called Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, and this is fundamental to the world around us, to quantum mechanics. And it might be something that you really intuitively get a sense of. What does Heisenberg's uncertainty principle say? It says that if you change the energy of something, and then you multiply that by how long it took, so by the duration of that change, then that has to be greater than a certain number. It can't be zero. It has to be bigger than a certain number. What's that number? It's a very famous number. It's called Planck's constant. Okay? I'm just going to be fancy there and put in the constants there. But H is Planck's constant. Planck was a very famous German quantum physicist. But what does this really mean? It means that if you make a change very quickly, if the duration is really, really tiny, the change in the energy cannot be tiny also. If you make a change very quickly, the energy will change by a lot. On the other hand, you can change the energy by a very small amount if you make a change very slowly. Okay, so in quantum mechanics with atoms and subatomic particles, very abrupt changes lead to very large uncertainty in energy. Very slow changes lead to where the duration is long, means that the energy uncertainty can be very small. So here's the idea. We're going to try and use some of these ideas together now. Let's say we want to move that atom into a different state, okay? It might be that we put the atom into a molecule or something like that, and it's got a different environment. These energy levels would now be in different places, okay? And the point is, let's say we want to keep that electron in the lowest energy. If you make that change to the atom very quickly, what's going to happen is the duration is small, so the change in energy is going to be very large, and this electron is going to just be up here somewhere. It's going to have huge uncertainty, and you won't have kept it in the lowest state, but we want to take it to there. How can we do that? We can do that by slow change. So instead of changing the system quickly, we're going to make the duration very long, and the system will be able to adapt its energy step by step. So in the adiabatic theorem, what you do is, if you want to keep the electron in this lowest state, you creep along here very, very, very slowly. And that's what the adiabatic actually means. It means very, very slow change. You change the environment very, very slowly and you adapt. That's the concept. What's that got to do with darts? What's that got to do with treble 20? What's that got to do with all this? The following. Let's imagine that this is treble 20. The ground state. Why is that a ground state? When we practice so much on treble 20, our muscle memory, our unconscious is really tuned in to that treble 20. It might be our most comfortable target. Like sometimes you might just pick up a dart and throw it and hit the treble 20. It's so comfortable. Okay. We very rarely practice on tops, if we're honest. We don't spend hours practicing tops, and when we play, we're not aiming for tops a lot unless you use the tops for power scoring strategy. So let's call this then double 20. When players shift from treble 20 to double 20, they make that shift using this kind of Heisenberg uncertainty principle idea. If you make that shift, you're introducing a lot of energy uncertainty. You're very unlikely to hit your target. You're just going to be somewhere else. But here's the idea. In our practice, there's a trick that we can use to essentially exploit this adiabatic theorem. Okay? And I will explain it to you right now. We're going to get right back to the darts now, but try and keep this concept in mind. Here's the trick. Very quick sketch of a dart player. So there's the board, there's tops, and there's treble 20. There's the oche. Here's our dart player, using quite an upright stance, by the way. Throwing their dart. Alright, they're happy because they like watching this channel. When they throw for treble 20, their dart's going to take a trajectory like this, okay? That's going to be the trajectory of their dart. I mean, actually, that's a really bad picture, in fact. I want to do a whole series about projectiles and trajectories. It's actually going to be more like this. It's going to dip more towards the end because of damping. Now, imagine if that player stepped forward of the oche. So let's imagine a ghost version of that player who is just forward of the oche. So here's a ghost of that player. and they are a few inches forward of the oche with exactly the same throw. They're going to hit double 20. They're going to hit tops. This is the whole point. If you step forward of the oche by a certain number of inches, depending on your height and your action, and you do your treble 20 throw that is your ground state, you are going to hit tops. You're just going to hit tops. And you're going to say, well, that's no good. I'm not allowed to step in front of the oche when I play. True, but you are allowed to step in front of the oche when you practice. And what we're going to do is, and I'll do a demonstration, you're going to step forward of the oche by a certain number of inches that you'll need to find. It'll depend on each individual. For me, it's about 5 or 6 inches. With my treble 20 throw, I will, if I relax and don't aim for treble 20, but just relax with my, sorry, don't aim for double 20, but with my treble 20 throw, I'll be hitting tops because of this. My projectile has been, my trajectory has been shifted. And here's what we do now. So we're in our treble 20 ground state. We're forward of the oche, we're hitting tops. We're going to just 1 inch at a time retreat. So go back an inch, throw, maybe a few visits. And now your treble 20 throw will miss tops. You'll be slightly low, but you adjust. You actually start aiming for tops now. But you're going to be in a quantum superposition. You're going to be aiming for tops, but using your treble 20 throw, keep hitting the treble 20. Retreat another inch. You need to put a little bit more energy into the throw, but keep that muscle memory of your treble 20 throw. Keep hitting tops. Retreat inch by inch until you get back to the oche, and you will find that you hit tops effortlessly. And you then can try to remember in your muscles what that feels like, because that is essentially the ghost of your treble 20 throw now being used for tops. So no more guesswork, no more throwing with hope. It's your treble 20 ground state has taught your body what the double 20 ground state is like, just like we saw with the adiabatic theorem. Phew! Right, a lot to get across there, but let's do a demonstration, okay? Now, the irony is that this has to be done slowly, and I can't do a half-hour video here, right? I mean, with all this demo and stuff. So the demo is not going to be slow in adiabatic, so it's not going to be the best demo in the world, but hopefully you'll get the idea, okay? So what I'm going to do is go to the oche. I'm going to just have a few, maybe a couple of warm-up visits to get my eye back in for treble 20. And then I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to go forward and try and use my treble 20 throw on tops, and we'll see how we get on as we slowly retreat. So here we go. So I'm just doing another take because I've been rushing these, but there's another camera that's pointing at the oche, and here's the oche, and then I've got strips which are 2, 4, 6 and 7 inches ahead. Now I'm going to start at the oche and just get very comfortable in my ground state for the treble 20. So that's fine. I'm not worried too much about hitting targets in this quick demo. It's just more about demonstrating the range. So my muscle memory is pretty good for the treble 20, and for me personally, if I go about 4 to 5 inches ahead, I'm going to aim for the treble 20 using that same throw, okay? And that's incredible. You see, what happens is I'm aiming at the treble 20 and I'm just using the same throw. I'm not changing my throw. And because I'm ahead of the oche, wow, the darts are automatically going into tops. So we know how to hit tops with our treble 20 throw if we're several inches ahead of the oche. And that's what we're going to exploit now. We're going to keep throwing and move slowly back from that forward position till we get back to the oche and get the best of both worlds, the comfort of the memory of the treble 20 throw with actually aiming at tops. So I can't do this in a quick video because you have to do this slowly. You have to have quite a few visits at each place on the oche, but I'll try my best to give you an idea of how it works. So I'm going to come back, say, a couple of inches to 3 inches now, and I'm looking at tops now. I'm aiming at tops, but I want to try and use the memory of that treble 20 throw. Okay, and this would be more effective if I were doing it the way that I recommend, which is to do it quite slowly, okay? Trying to use the memory of that treble 20 throw, but sort of aiming for tops, and that the range is fairly good. So let me come back to say 1 inch now, just for the purposes of the video. And again, I'm very, very comfortable. I'm sort of using my, wow, got a Jose de Souza there. You see how effective this is. I was just very, very relaxed using my treble 20 throw memory, an inch ahead of the oche now. So when we come all the way behind the oche, it's essentially the same thing, just very relaxed. So I'm just doing another take of this last bit of the demo because I totally lost my concentration. But just as we did an inch ahead of the oche, we want to use the memory of the treble 20 throw and fine. Okay, so it's kind of the impossible to demonstrate something that should be done very slowly to do it in a short amount of time, but I think you get the idea. And what we're doing here is basically exploiting this concept in quantum mechanics of having slow change to keep disruption to a minimum and essentially continuously go from one state to another. So we are going from the treble 20 state to the double 20 state, but we're using the memory knowledge of treble 20 to accomplish this. So the bottom line of this is, if we spend so much of our practice time going for treble 20, let's exploit all of that muscle memory and all of that unconscious with tops with this technique. So I hope that's been fairly clear and fairly useful. Great stuff. Thank you for all your support, everyone. 3 darts at the oche, and I'll see you next time. All the best.